Guys, today we're going to be doing a tutorial video. So in this video we're going to be covering lists. To be specific, it's a very similar data type to an array if you've encountered this sort of data type in any other language. So a list is something that can store many values, as I'm going to show you. So let's get started. So a list is like we've already learned about variables, okay? A variable, right? A variable can store a value, can be an integer like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it can be text like tutorial, or it can store a single value. Now what a list can do, okay? A list is when you want to store more than one value, okay? Like in under one identifier, which is the name of a variable. An identifier is known as the name of a variable. So if you want to store many values under one identifier, or one sort of variable name, you use lists. So a good example of list would be something that has maybe animals, list of animals. You would have a cow, you would have chicken or hen, and, and then you would have goats, so on and so forth. Okay, so this would be a list. This would be a list of animals. So we could maybe name this farm because these are all the animals that are there in a farm. Okay. So this is the basic data type that's known as farm. And if you print this out, you will see that it will print it out in the same format that you can see over here, which is what the three names over here. Now, what if you want to get only one value from this so-called list? Okay, so the way we get sort of values from lists is by using indexes. Now, an index is basically sort of a value that identifies which animal in the so-called farm identifier are we trying to take. So, in coding, generally most stuff starts from 0, not 1. So this would be zeroth index, so the zeroth index, first index, and second index, just like your for loops. So you would do this. So we take square brackets over here, and you put the index of what you want to retrieve. Now, because we're retrieving the zeroth item from this list, it'll return the value of cow and it'll print it out on the screen. So you can see cow. Okay. Let me just increase the size a bit. So yeah, so if you can return cow, and if you type 1, it will return to you hen, and so on and so forth until the end. If you go and if you exceed the list, you generally will get an error being like out of index. Yeah, list out of index. So it should be within this range. Now we have different functions or different ways to use these lists to sort of change it or mutate it. Okay, so what if I want to add a new animal to the farm? Okay, so I'll print the farm again. Okay, farm. What if I want to add an item or add something to the farm? Imagine I want to add append. We want to add a bull. Okay, imagine. So what we do is we use this function known as append. So we do the list name dot append, okay, dot append this part, and then in brackets what do you want to add. Okay, it can be of it does not necessarily have to be a string. You can also add values like 1 and 2 because it's a list. So because Python is a dynamic language, meaning that a variable or a list can have multiple types or can change type in between. So we can actually put different data types into our list. So we could also add like the value 1 over here. So I'll print it out. So this is before adding the bull, and this is after adding the bull. Okay, so it'll print out both. So you can see this one has the before adding the bull and after adding bull. So this is what the append function. You can add stuff to it. And then you also have the function which is known as pop. So pop is when you want to remove value. Okay, imagine we've added the bull. Now what if we want to remove the hen? Okay, imagine the hen's gone out of the farm. So you want to remove the hen. So you use the function as pop. There are two functions to remove. One is the remove function and one is the pop function. So pop, as you can see here, takes in an index. Okay, so which value? So as you can see, if you start counting here, cow is 1, cow is 0, hen is 1, goat is 2, bull is 3. So hen would be of value 1. So we give the index and it'll pop it out of the loop. of the, oh, this is just pops it. It also returns the value, but we don't want to get the what's returned from pop, but you want to print the farm itself. As you can see, the hen's gone and bull's added in. Another way of removing hen from the list would be just giving the value of what you want to remove. So we would use the remove function. Okay. So you want to remove hen. This is a bit like if you give an invalid entry which is not included in the list, then it'll give out errors. So yeah, as you can see, hen is still removed when you use this function, so-called function known as remove. So generally we use this to store a lot of a very similar data. Like we use it to store something that comes under very similar data, like names of something. And sometimes what we want to do is we want to go through all of these sort of variables in this list using a loop or using a loop. Yeah. So what we can do is we can use the for loop. So there are two ways of doing this. First is the most is what we use when you're using common sense. Okay. So before knowing the first method of going through a list using a for loop, we first need to know about the function length. Okay. So len is a short form for length. So this will give you the number of values that you have or the number of items you have in this list. Okay. So as you can see, this list has 3 values in it. So it will give you the output of 3. Now, what we want to do, if you want to go or use a for loop, is we want to say for I in range. Okay. So now, how many times do you want this to loop? We know this has 3 items, but rather than manually typing 3, we can actually use the length function. So length, and we get the length of form. So what this does is um, we use the we use the length of form to get the number of times it has to repeat. And now that if you want to print every single farm animal, you would be print farm, okay, of I. Now the reason why I'm doing farm of I, in the previous episodes I've told you that I is a counter, okay, so it shows you where in the loop you are. It'll start at 0, just like the indexes. This is one of the biggest advantages of having counters, is which we can use it with many data types that start from 0, and when you want to go through them. So as you can see, this would print out all of the farm animals one by one. Okay. Now another way of writing this for loop, another method or another way of sort of writing this would be for every animal. You can give any name to this. Okay, in the so-called list that you have farmed. Now the problem with this is it does not give you the index. Sometimes when you have 2 to 3 lists or some other situation scenarios, when you have 2 to 3 lists which sort of correlated to each other by indexes, we want to get the index so we can access many loops. So that's when you generally use I more preferably. So over here you could just print animal. Okay. So this would print out every animal in the farm. It's pretty literal. So yeah, that's it. So you print every animal in the list farm. Okay. So another function that sort of relates to lists is when you're printing out statements. Whenever you want to print sort of this as a string, okay. If you want to print this as a string, like a long string rather than these brackets and all, we can do this. Okay. So we have a function known as joined. Okay. So what if you want to say the animals in a farm are, you want to place space, you concatenate this using a plus. Okay, because it's formatting, but yeah, and we want to sort of join them, so we use the function as joined. So first we have a delimiter, as known as a delimiter, which means a string value that comes in between cow, hen, and goat. Okay, so for this I will keep a delimiter of a comma, which is shows that different types, comma, yeah, dot join. You see all these functions, so we're going to use the join function. Okay, so what join function does, it takes sort of a list, or yeah, okay, and sort of makes it into a string by putting commas in between each value of that list. Example, see, the animals in the farm are cow, comma, hen, comma, goat. Now if you're using proper function, they're using punctuation properly and keep space there. So as you can see, yeah, so you could use any delimiter, put no delimiter, or it's known as delimiter. So put no delimiter, then what happens is it just sort of sticks to each other. We could also put \n, which means new line, so like the cow would come the first line, hen and goat would come the next 2 lines, something like that. Yeah. So we could do different delimiters and sort of combine this list. Okay. So now another function that we use with lists is when you want to convert a string to a list. When there's a sort of a logical way of dividing the items in that so-called string. So you could use the days of the week. Imagine. So we have the days of the week. So days of the week, and we use a string. Okay, because imagine we are getting input or something like that. We get the days of the string. We have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Yeah, okay. So we're getting the days of the week, and if you print this out, okay, we get the days of the week. Now, at times you want to convert this into an array or a list, so I meant. And to do this, we use something known as the split function. So split will return you an array. So now rather than having a delimiter, we have a separator. So you want to see what separates each item in this list. As you can see in this, commas separated, right? As you can see the 4 commas. So what we do is we put our separator, quote unquote separator over here, and this will divide the list into into its parts, making it into a list. So we would have to write days is equal to days dot split, and when we print out, as you can see here, it's converted in array. If you want to take the first value, you can. Yeah. So that's how the split function works. These are various functions we use to sort of how we're going to use lists. So we have pop, remove. As you can see, as I told you in the first episode, we have the help function, which tells us all the functions under it. So we have, yeah, so we have different functions that help us. You can go through it. I'll try putting in the description maybe of the video. So yeah, so we have a lot of functions over here. So yeah, so we have the count function, which would count the sort of one item in the list, like how many numbers of it, how many of that item is there in a list, and so on and so forth. This is a very good tool that we have at our disposal to use arrays. Um, Another concept that I think I'll teach you is about characters, okay, about strings, a little bit more about string manipulation, okay. So how we, okay, so strings are sort of almost in Python like, you see this one time every single. Huh? Get lost. Big time, get lost. Okay. Okay, so what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna talk about some sort of string manipulation. So we have a string, okay, a string. This is we went to the park, okay. Okay, so now a string is almost like a list of characters. A character would be W, W, E, and so on and so forth. So even in strings, we could sort of use it like an array by using indexes, like I talked about before. So generally speaking, when we are using lists, okay, we're gonna talk about. Okay, should have not had. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about list comprehension. Okay, so list comprehension is a way of using lists, or you could say making lists more easy to use. Okay, so imagine we have a list, maybe, okay, we'll, we'll give a list of names. Okay, we have the name Nathan, Greg, Craig, that's not a good example. Okay, wait. Okay. So now we're gonna make use of lists, and I might even introduce the concept of list comprehension. So we have a list, okay, for, so we're gonna first input. Oh, I'm just gonna end this video.